Hey everyone, Token Dave over here. Dorky token black guy who's just trying to get by. Okay, so a couple of days ago, I had a conversation with someone at a bar while I was drinking red wine. God, I become such a pansy when it comes to drinks. You know, especially after yesterday when my friend's baby shower, dudes had some Jolly Ranchers, but they were type strong, but I couldn't even finish it. But anyway, had a conversation with someone at a bar a few days ago and touched upon some interesting realms. One of the most interesting things that I talked about was my favorite fighting game franchise. And if you're one of my newer followers, you might not be aware of what my favorite fighting game franchise is. So, just to let y'all know, my favorite fighting game franchise is Garo Densetsu, which is The Legend of the Hungry Wolf. In the American and Western translations, the game is known as Fatal Fury. And when I mentioned that to this person, they immediately thought of, oh, you mean King of Fighters? And he's technically right, because the very first Garo Densetsu, the tournament was called the King of Fighters. But when you mention King of Fighters to everyone nowadays, they think about the fighting video game franchise that, you know, utilizes teams. To which I had to tell him, no, I mean Garo Densetsu, the SNK series that introduced the tournament, but is not the 3-on-3, or if you want to go by the NES series, the 3+ striker character on 3+ striker character game franchise. And that person was perplexed because they were like, oh, what, the game that the guy with the trucker hat came from? And I said the very same. So of a million realms, they asked me why. And the main thing that I'm able to tell him, which is why I'm sharing with you all, is the fact that the major reason why Garo Densetsu is my favorite fighting game franchise, it's twofold. One, it's the first fighting video game that had a non-Asian lead character. It's number one. Number two, the one that I identified the most with because it predominantly took place in a city and it had a very urban feel. So figured I'd let you all know that and probably expand on it a little bit more. So when I say it had a real urban feel, you know, I mean more of an urban feel than the Street Fighter video games did. For those that are saying, what about Final Fight and what about Bad Dudes? I'm talking about fighting games, not beat 'em ups. You know, fighting games where you have one character facing one character. And this is what I'm talking about with fighting game franchises, especially with the first non-Asian lead protagonist. Now, when I said Garo Densetsu Fatal Fury is more of a urban feel and city life feel, it's not only because of the stages, because the stages is something that you would see in almost every major city. You know, you fought near a train yard, you fought outside on the street, you fought on a beach, you fought in front of a bridge, you know. More so than, it was more street than the Street Fighter video games was. And the reason why I say that is not only because of the atmosphere, but for a vast majority of the fighters. You know, I mean, you have those people like Geese Howard, Dong Fu Ru, you know, some of those people, oh, and Kim Kafan, some of the people that have like stylized or non-traditional martial arts that you see people in the city utilize. But I'm talking about martial arts that you see a lot of people that like grow up in the city or thrive in the city that they tend to use mostly. And for example, the lead protagonist, Terry Bogard. Now Terry is interesting because Terry was actually the very first mixed martial artist in a fighting video game. You know, if you look at him, especially in the first game, he had the stance like a boxer. But a lot of his movesets, you could tell that he has some karate practice, but as well as some kickboxing practice, some judo and wrestling. So this is a guy that basically, he took a lot of elements from different fighting styles and used them for a more effective martial art. To be honest, he was more like a Caucasian version of Bruce Lee, you know? Of course, he had this typical American stereotypes, but it wasn't just Terry. You look at a lot of the other characters. For example, you look at Mr. Raiden, or Raiden-sama, aka Big Bear, depending on which wrestling personality he uses. He's a wrestler, and it's interesting because he's Raiden when he's a heel, or he's Big Bear when he's a face. They didn't show this in the Garo Zetsu 2 anime, but that's something fairly interesting. They incorporated wrestling and pro wrestling into a fighting game in more realistic terms. You have Blue Mary, you know, she is a Sambo stylist, you know. I'm not talking about Sambo from Uncle Tom's Cabin. I'm talking about Sambo as in the Russian grappling martial art, you know. And we also have Joe Higashi and Hua Jai, who are Muay Thai stylists. And we also have Franco Bash, who's a kickboxer. Very predominant urban martial arts. We got our boxers with, you know, Michael Max, and we also have, you know, Axel Hawk. But we also have Richard Meyer and Bob Wilson, whom are capoeira stylists. And it's very interesting. Capoeira is a flashy martial art, but it's one of those flashier martial arts that can be utilized in the streets more than Taekwondo is. It's fairly interesting, you know, in my personal opinion. So, yeah, those are a lot of the major reasons why Garo Zetsu, aka Fatal Fury, is my favorite fighting game franchise. You know, what's your favorite fighting game franchise? Please drop me a comment below, give me a like, follow me on Facebook at Token Dave, or on Twitter at Token Dave 80. Subscribe, ring that bell so you know when a new video loads, and, you know, open a dialogue, you know. And if you want to know more, or if you want me to elaborate a lot more, drop me another comment. Anyway, it's Token Dave, dorky token black guy who's just trying to get by. Catch all of y'all later.